Second round games on Wednesday, Virginia Tech and Florida State. That's the most notable game for the Tar Heels because Carolina will play the winner of that game. That game is at noon on Wednesday, approximately 2:30 Wednesday. It's Wake Forest against the winner of Notre Dame, Georgia Tech. 7 o'clock on Wednesday, it's Syracuse versus the winner of NC State, Louisville. And 9:30 on Wednesday, Clemson versus the winner of BC, Miami. Carolina, Pitt, Duke, and Virginia. It was Carolina 1, Duke 2, Virginia 3, Pitt 4. The four teams that end up earning the double bye and don't play till Thursday. Carolina in action Thursday at noon again against the winner of Virginia Tech and Florida State. So, Adam, competitive tournament, I'm sure. I do think Carolina and Duke have proven to be the best two teams. I certainly think Wake Forest and Pitt, outside of teams that need to win it to go to the tournament, I think Wake Forest and Pitt are the two teams that need wins the most to try and boost their resume. I guess maybe Virginia's in there too, I don't know. Virginia won pretty handily in its final game against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's been really hard to read this year, so don't know if that's Virginia maybe getting right a little bit or if it was just Georgia Tech didn't want to play that day, because it seems like when they want to play, they're good, and some other times maybe not as much. So from the Tar Heel perspective, I think they're going to have a challenging game in that quarterfinal regardless of opponent. I think both those teams are good. Neither one of them has been a great team this year, but they're both good teams and certainly capable of winning against Carolina. The Tar Heels, I do think, are still heavily in the mix for that final number one seed in the NCAA tournament, because I think everybody agrees that UConn and Purdue and Houston are going to get three of them, with that last one really coming down to Carolina, Tennessee, and Arizona. I said on Saturday I thought maybe Carolina was in third of those three. I'm not sure I believe that anymore. You really look at the metrics and the numbers and Carolina's got as strong an argument as either of those other two teams. Now, if they lose on Thursday, their argument's probably done, and they're going to be a 2 seed, and that's okay too. But I do think Carolina has the ability to make it to that final number one seed, but they'll have to do some work in D.C. to get it.
Yeah, I think from an ACC perspective, you could potentially convince me that if that quarterfinal game is Virginia against Clemson, if Virginia were to lose that game, things could get a little dicey.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that. I think that's the most intrigue ACC-wise, unless maybe Wake makes a long run.
Wake Pitt will be
right.
Could be a huge game.
Those are the two games of the day if they actually occur.
Right.
On Thursday. From a national perspective, Carolina-wise, my personal belief, unfounded by any actual facts, is that the NCAA would like that 4 seed to be Arizona, to have some sort of representation out that way, on that side of the country. So I think they will probably get the benefit of the doubt. But if Arizona and Tennessee were to lose in their tournaments and Carolina goes all the way to Saturday, I almost said Sunday, but that's in the old days. Carolina goes all the way to Saturday and wins it or looks good, I think you've got a strong case. I think some of the metrics are a little silly, like the fact that we're having this discussion about Carolina and Tennessee.
Right.
If only they had played.
Right.
But Dalton Knecht didn't play the last
90 seconds,
yeah.
Adam.
Imagine how different that
And it was in Chapel Hill. How can the Tar Heels cheat like that and play a home game?
Yeah, that shouldn't even be allowed. Why didn't they return the game?
Yeah.
So I do think, and we've talked to both current players and past players about this, it's really hard to get to the emotional peak that you have to be at to play Duke, then go to the ACC tournament and play 3 games in 3 days at least, then go to the NCAA tournament and you lose and go home. That's 3 weeks in a row where you've got to be redlining the intensity, and that's just hard to do from human nature. So don't be incredibly surprised if the Tar Heels come out on Thursday and don't look like they're ready to fight the Lions in the Coliseum, because it's just tough. And if you're so fortunate as to make it to Saturday, at that point you're really tired.
Yeah.
And so it's more a battle of who can actually summon it up for those 2 hours. But if you summon it up for those 2 hours, can you come back the next week? So it's getting close to feeling like a bowl game. Who's most excited to be there?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is just the goals of all the teams in the event are different, I think. I mean, there's the overriding goal of, sure, you want to be the tournament champion. Yes, I guess that's important. Roy Williams used to always say, if we're there to play, then we're going to try and win the game. I understand that. But, I mean, I do think, like, for example, Carolina and Duke, their overriding goals are probably different, although Duke takes the tournament very seriously. Their overriding goals are probably different than Pitt and Virginia and Wake, which are different from a team like Virginia Tech or something, or Syracuse, who I think is a good team that needs to win the tournament to get to the NCAA tournament. So everybody's just got different goals. And I think the goals for Carolina are to continue to play well. Obviously, you would love to win it, but it doesn't derail your season if you don't. I think the biggest value of being that final number 1 seed is that you aren't in a region with one of the other 3 number 1 seeds. Because I do think those 3 teams have proven to be – I think Carolina can go to the Final Four. Carolina's a good enough team when it's playing its best to win it. We understand how hard that is to do. But I think Carolina's in the second group right now of teams that you would say put these first 3 in one group. Then you got a group of maybe 5 or 6 teams that are in the next group, and Carolina's at the top of that next group.
Yeah, and I think this year it feels like there's even more weight on being that 4th number 1, because if you're the first number 2 from Carolina's perspective, you may very likely end up in Boston with UConn, which is where you do not want to be for multiple reasons.
Right.
So that's a pretty stiff penalty. Normally you would say, last number 1, first number 2, pretty much the same. It's not the same this year, I don't think.
I don't understand either why. I mean, and I don't disagree with you, but it seems like the Tar Heels, even if they had to travel west, it feels like you'd rather be, like you would think that it would just be the final number 1 is the 1 seed in this last bracket, which a lot of people feel like is going to be the West. And then the top number 2 will be the 2 seed. And yes, that makes logical sense, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. They do try to keep geography at least loosely in mind. But I say that, and let's not forget that Cal and Stanford are joining the league next year, but let's keep geography in mind for this very important thing that we do, the NCAA tournament.
Well, and the committee would tell you they don't look that far down the bracket and don't anticipate, 1 versus 2 could be Carolina, UConn in Boston. That would be a steep disadvantage for Carolina. That's what they would say.
Right.
But I do think that is something worth taking into account. But Carolina's been in that position before where the regional's in Greensboro.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So that's just how it worked out this year.